Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Tables with your host, Rob Bradley,
John Charles Ciccarelli,
James Burrows,
and Damien Hallwood.
Hello, and welcome back to Tales from the Tables after our long extended hiatus due to illness, other things getting in the way, and life in general. But we are back.
and the BBEG of it all, scheduling.
Life. It's good to be back. It's good to be back.
Woo!
Yes. Although we are still missing Rob, as he's still
Unfortunately.
unwell, and also has lost all internet today as well. So he couldn't even come by to set this up for us. So
all the internet has been lost. That's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. I know. I don't know what I'd do without 5 minutes on the internet.
What would happen to our society if we lost internet as a global community for 1 minute? I feel like everything would fall apart.
I think it would be
Beneficial.
akin to the global equivalent of the spell slow.
Ooh, that's an interesting take.
It's recently we have supermarket deliveries from our friendly local supermarket, and they have had a big sort of systems shutdown that's basically rendered their internet software unusable, and so they've gone back to pen and paper. And talking to the delivery guy the other day, it just sounded like it was just archaic, and it was like, how did this ever exist before the internet?
I know. How did people? The one that gets me is, how did people get places, like really weird or remote places, without GPS, without Google Maps, without
a big old fold-out map and a compass? I've got a couple of friends,
and sometimes those big old fold-out maps don't even have some of the smaller roads or remote locations or something like that. Like, you really needed specific directions. And I would think back on, when wedding invites would give you directions from the highway and stuff like that. But even still, I'm like, I'd be so lost all the time.
Oh God, yeah. No, I generally have a newfound appreciation having to drive to places all over the UK for people who had to do it using a map and compass, and just absolute the stuff of nightmares for me.
Yeah. I'm never one of those people that think I rely on technology too much. I tend to handwrite my notes a lot. I like to say that I'm not very digital, or I can subsist without being very digital, but I don't know. It's a scary place out there without that. We're too, as a society, ingrained. We're too built in. We're too plugged in.
Yeah,
but
it's the lack of ownership.
But hey, anyway, thank you for listening to us online.
This is where we talk about D&D, apparently.
Yeah. So, do we have any news from the past few weeks? We've got some built up, I imagine.
Wouldn't it be great if I said no, like nothing? Nothing. No, we do. Surprisingly, not as much as I was expecting going through the list. The big one, of course, is the release of the Dungeon Master's Guide, but we'll probably save that till the back end, just because I imagine that will take up the meat of the conversation if you chaps have had a chance to dive in.
Nope, but I can't wait to talk about it.
I would be extremely remiss on our Dungeons and Dragons podcast if I didn't mention that yesterday, as of recording, was the 7th of November, which is N7 Day.
Yes.
One of the most exciting announcements from it, there wasn't a great deal. It was a very sort of low-key event. But one of the biggest announcements from it is that we're getting a Mass Effect TV series, or rather, one that had previously been mentioned is now in active development.
Yep.
For Amazon.
Okay.
And we know that BioWare is focusing exclusively on making the next Mass Effect game now that Dragon Age Veilguard has been launched.
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance
to good response,
check out
I think, as well. I think Veilguard's getting a lot of sort of, hey, BioWare feels like they're back.
Yeah, I've been seeing that, and I'm honestly surprised because the trailers did not inspire a lot of confidence, but apparently it's really promoting and putting story first. So at one point I'll check it out because I loved the Dragon Age games. Well, everything except 2.
So I've got some opinions on Dragon Age. Mostly positive, I will say. But yeah.
All right. Cool.
That's all as to say that it excites me the idea that IP will grow in recognition.
Yes.
I mean, it's a pretty well recognized IP anyway, especially if you're in the world of games and so forth. But seeing it get a big sort of Fallout-esque boom would be great, and
that'd
hopefully
be
take
so
us one step
awesome.
closer to a official TTRPG.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yes.
So, video game news out the way. Very exciting. There's a couple of bits that might be worth mentioning. I think I may have mentioned previously, I forget whether I did. There was news that we were getting a Ravenloft novel.
Yes.
It's now been given a title, a cover, and a synopsis.
Oh.
Given the title, the synopsis doesn't really... It's basically the synopsis, if you read it. Yeah, the synopsis, if you read it, reads very much as Curse of Strahd. A bunch of people get pulled into Barovia and have to deal with Strahd in the mist, and it's very, very the synopsis of the book, the TTRPG book. So I don't know where the heir of Strahd actually comes into play.
Yeah.
But the cover, I see a lot of people...
Maybe one of those pulled-in adventurers will be the heir of Strahd.
Quite possibly, yeah. Speaking of said adventurers, the front cover features them writ large. And I've seen a lot of talk online about this cover. It's very contentious. The artwork's very pretty. It features Strahd in a sort of pale blue looming over the castle over his shoulder, and then the adventurers at the bottom of the page. There's 4 of them. And one of the sort of... Five, sorry, yes.
There's a Kenku that
I keep missing the Kenku that's crouched down at the bottom.
He's blending in very well. They're blending in.
I've heard a lot of talk that this isn't a very Ravenlofty cover. It doesn't inspire a very horror feeling from the cover. And I tend to agree. The adventurers all look
pretty happy,
very excited and happy and well kitted out, and they look like they're off on a grand adventure. And Strahd is very sort of half smiling at them with an ever so slightly raised brow. It doesn't feel very horror-y, but it's very beautiful, and it's a very nice rendition of Strahd with a card in his fingers and a glass of definitely Vine in his hand.
Definitely.
So yeah, it's interesting. It'd be fun to read a book focused on that, but it does very much sound like it's just a sort of novelized version of adventurers go to Barovia and have to fight Strahd.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're just keeping the secrets out of the synopsis, but...
Do we know if this is a standalone novel or if it's going to be part of a series?
As far as I know, it's standalone. I've not read anything to say that it's part of a series, although I imagine that will be dictated by success.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah, I'm interested. The Heir of Strahd title offers some questions that the synopsis is not even coming close to acknowledging is a question.
No, not at all.
Right.
So yeah, that'll be interesting. I'll probably get it and read
it. I'm really stuck on trying to determine which classes these 5 heroes are.
Oh, I can tell
I'm
you.
I'm looking at the Kenku. It tells you? Okay.
Yeah. got a wizard, orc wizard.
Or half-orc wizard, probably. Yeah, for sure.
I think I said orcish, so yeah, maybe.
Sure.
Drow barbarian.
Okay. With a homunculus? Paladin. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Drow barbarian, tiefling paladin, a Kenku cleric, and a human artificer.
I can see it, like an alchemist artificer. He's with the flask.
Like it.
Yes, there is a little vial.
I would say that's a good bet. Honestly, I thought, my brain went Kenku, hood, probably a rogue, especially given the pose. But then I saw the magic in the hands, and I'm like, well, it's either a cleric or an arcane trickster. But I kind of see this weapon sticking out above their shoulder that implies like a heavier weapon, and then I'm like, maybe cleric actually. Yeah. So
like
I see that
end of a mace.
Yeah. Right. Exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, and then the artificer with the flask and the many flasks on her hip looks kind of cool. I think the artwork looks cool. You're right. Maybe not very horror inspiring. Everyone looks pumped, but we'll see. I don't know. It's exciting. I'll always take more Strahd. I can't ever say no to that.
Yeah. Outside of that sort of direct Wizards news, interestingly, a lot of people online were speculating about Chris Perkins' sort of offhand comment in an interview about the most recent book, the Dungeon Masters one, being his last in his current role. And a lot of people wondered what that meant. That has been clarified now as Chris Perkins moves to from game architect to creative director.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
So Chris Perkins taking a step up
Mm.
in the world. I imagine rightly earned. I mean, Chris has had a massive impact on the game in a very large number of years now, and is, I think, a great pick in general. I very rarely have issue with anything I hear from him or listening to him talk about the game and the contributions he's made to it. Clearly very in love with the game. I remember hearing him asked about, does he ever, what does he do to get away from D&D and like, what does he do to sort of take a break? And he said he doesn't. He says, when I'm out walking the dog, I'm thinking of D&D. When I'm at home, I'm thinking of D&D. It never gets tiring for me. So
That's the story of my life. Jesus.
Yeah, may that forever remain true for him, because he's creative director now. So congratulations to Chris, and
Very nice.
Be interesting to see where that takes us in the future. We also got another live play with Jeremy Crawford, this time in the GM seat, with the cast of Baldur's Gate 3.
Mm-hmm.
It was called What We Do in the Shadow-Cursed Lands.
Clever.
Yeah.
Love it.
Featuring Neil Newbon as Astarion, Samantha Burt playing Karlach, Theo Solomon playing Will, and Devorah Wild playing Lysel.
Mm-hmm.
It's great seeing them all together. It's great hearing them talk. It's hearing that cast, those voices all talking to each other out of the context of the game and being a bit freer and a bit more silly and a bit more sort of playful together, but still maintaining character. So it's worth a watch. It's a good giggle. It's daft.
I've seen clips here and there. It is pretty funny. Karlach and Astarion taking the cake as always.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other two sort of playing straight but still for laughs. Lysel's sort of ruthless personality still being very funny in context to everything else that's going on. So worth a watch. It's a good giggle. It's about just over an hour, I think, an hour and 15, hour and 20, something like that. So not
that's actually pretty short. I could watch that on a commute. Oh my god.
Yeah, absolutely. Worth a watch.
Nice.
Still D&D, but beyond the worlds of Wizards directly. Surprise, surprise, The Legend of Vox Machina is renewed for a 4th season.
Woo!
Clap. I still got to catch up on the 3rd season, I think.
Same. I do. I need to catch up. I'm not.
We all do. We're bad. We're sorry, listeners. We've disappointed you. We failed you. But
we're not doing a great job of putting out the vibes of getting the cast of Critical Role onto our podcast.
It's because we're so busy playing D&D, guys. We have a good excuse.
And others. More on that later. So, 4th season. Nothing yet from the Mighty Nine series expected for next year. They haven't released anything that I've seen any more about that, other than that it exists and that they're working on it. So very excited about that. Mighty Nine campaign I started from the beginning as it started, whereas campaign 1 I had to catch up on. So I discovered Critical Role right as they were finishing their first campaign, like the last sort of 15-20 sessions.
I think I started watching them as they were starting their second campaign. So
me too, I think.
So very excited. I mean, Legend of Vox Machina is superb, and the campaign is a superb watch going back, even though early episodes have a bit of sort of technical issues to get over. They're a much more polished machine these days. But very excited for Mighty Nine. I'm hoping for big things from that, because I do love that cast of characters very much. And I can only imagine we'll get a Bell's Hells announcement at some point in the future too, if they're not already too busy. So
Yeah.
that's good news from them getting a fourth
Fun.
season. Hardly surprising that since they haven't finished the story of the main campaign, from what I gather, of campaign 1. And then last little bit here, just a little addendum on the end that's not D&D related, but a system that I don't have a lot of experience with, but I know is popular. Blades in the Dark has had in most people's opinion, it seems a long overdue setting and systems expansion called Deep Cuts, which I think is available now. I've seen it knocking about on Drive-Thru RPG. So yeah, a big expansion with new rules, new factions, innovations in technology, heritage and background options, a great deal of additional content to sort of bring spice back to that game. Have either of you had any experience with Blades in the Dark?
Unfortunately not. I wish I did. I keep hearing how fun and how approachable the system is. So one day I'm pretty eager to try it, but no, nothing yet.
No, I've not.
Candela
I've not
Obscura
played
is
it
inspired
either.
by it, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Candela Obscura, it hits all the right vibes for me. I think I might have mentioned this on a podcast before. It hits all the right vibes for me in terms of setting and tone. I heard the system is unfortunately lacking, and it just does. It's not very conducive. The whole shenanigans with many rules missing, like there's no rules for player death and stuff like that. But they're just the vibes are all what I'm about. This post-war, post-industrial revolution, gritty, grim darks, semi-steampunkish, but not really. Victorian-esque gothic feel, well, not gothic, but Victorian-esque feel with magic in the background and fae in the background. I'm like, oh, I'm all about this. Hit me with those dark London streets and those strange experiments. I'm ready.
What was that Orlando Bloom series on Amazon?
Oh, yes, it was.
I mean, you love
Carnival Row.
Carnival Row.
Carnival Row. Okay, listen, I'm here to die by that series. Okay, this is the hill upon which, because it was not bad, honestly.
No, it was good.
Okay, I really enjoyed it. Orlando Bloom played very against character type, which was kind of refreshing to watch. He was a very convincing, kind of like gritty, I'm tired of all this shit detective, like he was, and the whole vibe of it was that it was this, post-war sort of dark Victorian city, lots of social divides and a mystery going on in the background about some a murder mystery, basically, which ended up being this Lovecraftian sort of thing, which I'm here for. Like, I showed up so hard, and then I think they finally got a second season, and I never got around to watching it. So I got to get back onto that track.
I have started the second season, and I am enjoying it. So.
Nice. All right, there we go. Boom. Carnival Row. You heard it here first.
It's probably not going to be renewed for a third season, so I hope the second season.
No, I think I do know that second is that. You know what else is not getting renewed for a third season, which was planned, but it breaks my heart. Arcane on Netflix.
Is it really not?
Yeah, no. This is
me.
So the new one is coming out in, I think, this weekend, or if not, very soon. But after that, they've already announced that this is the final season of Arcane, which is only 2 if you're keeping track at home, and is a shame because this is one of, I think, the best animations ever put to film. Like, this is or TV.
It hurts, but I can absolutely appreciate
I understand.
I'll give you 3 examples right off the bat, which all 3 are utterly superb series that are all confirmed to be 1 or 2 seasons, at least for the time being, in one of their cases. And that is, and I know me and JC share this in common, Andor will only be 2 seasons, the second of which coming next year. Absolutely phenomenal show.
Should
tight,
be 3.
Beautifully written, and will be one and done before it gets a chance to get stale. Another is Stranger Things will end on its 5th season, which, I mean, talk about a merchandise juggernaut. They could very easily just keep pushing that out every couple of years and would get the viewership and would make the money. Unless
You
they
know there will
completely
be
jump the shark.
spin-offs. You
There
know
will be
there will
absolutely
be
spin-offs. Yeah, I'm certain of it.
Yeah, and you know, never say never. There might be a sequel way down the line in the future,
Yeah.
but for now, this is the right decision.
And then,
Sure.
if anyone is watching it, if you're not, you should be. Penguin.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
It's
Interesting.
absolutely superb. It's fantastic. From
Really?
the performances, the writing, the production values. It's just it's all
Oh,
killer,
I'll
no
watch it.
filler. All killer, no filler. Every episode.
I heard that we are not getting another season of this. Is that right?
Exactly.
No, we're
Yeah,
not.
it's meant to be
Yeah.
a limited season,
Oh, it
which
was.
will lead
Okay.
directly into the Batman 2.
I heard rumors that Colin Farrell hated doing this, and it was mostly about the prosthetics and the makeup, but I'm not sure.
I don't know about hate. I mean, probably to a degree. I think he struggled because it's hours and hours worth of makeup. And listening to one of the other cast members talk, it seems that he had to literally, between takes, have to go and take himself off to a refrigerated room
Just to cool off.
Off because he was so hot under all of. Because he's wearing a full sort of head and neck makeup, and then his body is bulked out as well underneath his clothes to sort of fill him out a bit. So he is heavily insulated. But if you haven't seen it, and if you enjoyed The Batman, Matt Reeves is the Batman, which I personally thought was superb as well, and you like things like the Sopranos and stuff like that, then you will love The Penguin.
Nice. Oh my god, I got my TV filled out for me for the rest of the perfect for the winter months, but oof, a lot to catch up on.
So then shortly in December as well, we've got Secret Level releasing on Amazon.
Yeah,
which looks
What is
interesting.
The video game series.
Yes, it's an anthology series.
A la Love, Death, and Robots, right? That sort of
yes.
thing. Yes. I saw that.
So there's a list of stuff that's included. So Armored Core, Concord, which the game has failed spectacularly. So that's interesting.
And the studio's been shut down.
And the studio shut down, but I suppose the episode was probably already made when that happened. Crossfire. Which is not something I'm familiar with, but then we have Dungeons and Dragons gets an episode.
Yep, Tiamat makes an appearance. We know that.
Exodus, Honor of Kings, which is a MOBA. So I suppose similar to how Arcane did it for League of Legends. It'll be somewhat similar to that. Mega Man is getting an episode. Cool.
Saw that.
Very exciting.
New World Eternum, which is an MMORPG that I have not played, but I have watched my brother play it for a little while, and it does look pretty cool. It's very D&D, like fantasy-esque, with its own sort of flourishes and stuff. So that might be quite interesting. And maybe, I don't know, the tipping point for me buying the game to play with my brother if it interests
if it's good,
enough.
if it's enjoyable.
Yeah. So a Pac-Man one, an episode just dedicated to PlayStation in general. So that'll be interesting. I wonder if that'll
Listen, if it's an Astro Boy episode, I'm here for it because that game was fantastic.
Yeah. It really is superb.
It is great. Sifu, so that's a beat 'em up game set in China. So that looks cool. Spelunky, the 2008 2D platformer, gets an episode. So that will be interesting. Outer Worlds, which is quite interesting, although I mean they can only do a better job than the Borderlands
than the actual game
with a similar premise.
I heard they finally turned things around, Outer Worlds, and by then it was too late. So
I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say. I quite enjoyed Outer Worlds, but and then the final two is Unreal Tournament. So cool. And then Warhammer 40k. Space Marine,
that's
which
cool.
I believe will be a direct sequel to Space Marine 2.
That is correct.
This is fascinating to me that they have giant IPs like Dungeons & Dragons, Warhammer, Mega Man, and then they have random things in there that are like Spelunky.
Spelunky, following the video game world as close as I do, Spelunky is a surprisingly very, very popular game. Very popular.
Wow.
I can totally see why that's on the list.
Right.
it's a golden age for TV series and limited
It really
seasons.
is.
And to circle back,
And video game adaptations, like
and
it's
video
still
game
out.
adaptations, it's a brave new
Yeah.
world, and I've got to respect these
That's Outer
teams
Worlds.
who are
It's
committing to 1 or 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Because
I see. The thing is, I don't have a problem with series only lasting a season or 2 if that is the plan from the start and you get a full story out of it. Fine. What I don't like is them, or like Netflix cancelling something after 3 seasons when they've left it on a cliffhanger. Just tell them before that is the ending they give everyone. Where they just
you sound like you're speaking from experience, James. Any particular things coming to mind here? Any gripes? Any grudges?
Probably the OA.
Wow, the OA left off on a cliffhanger?
I think so. Lock and Key maybe didn't get a proper ending.
I watched the first season of that and I was like, well, I'll pass. After I was fine. It was all right.
But yeah, just give me a proper ending. It's not. Just tell them in advance if you think it's not making you money and it's going to be shit. You're going to cancel it. All right, fine. But just or give them the budget to make an episode or 2 to tie things together at the end. I realize that as a business decision,
alternate ending.
Not great.
Make an alternate ending episode.
As laced with its own problems as it may be, I've always identified as a brown coat. So to me, this is my bread and butter. All right, canceled TV series will, for like way before they're due, will forever be my hill to die on and my sticking point.
I think I'll have to say, I think that is Firefly is the only TV series I've gone into knowing that it's been cancelled and knowing that there's only 1 series and still deciding to watch it because I watched Serenity first.
Oh wow! Oh yeah,
should have seen the show so first. Much. Yeah, so it was upsetting. I had a better appreciation for Serenity having going back to watch it after the series, and I'd become emotionally invested in the characters.
It's kind of amazing how you realize that show was launched in 2002.
Yeah,
you know how that show is 20 years old and people still talk about it so fondly. It's still so freshly in the memory of so many people. Serenity with it.
Still selling merchandise.
Books, people
games.
still. There's a Flux. I'm pretty sure there's a Firefly Flux version out there. There's like lots of merch and tie-ins, and people constantly talk about it. I think I saw something recently that they were. I think it's maybe like a comic book or some sort of written format. They're launching.
Series. There's a comic series.
But I feel like there was a news about something getting launched. Maybe it's like a book, like a tie-in novel to the world or something. But,
I'm glad. I'm glad that Serenity did get made and it sort of put a cap on the story, I guess. But it's also a shame that it got made and then sort of killed any possibility in the intervening years when maybe they could have forced a second series out on a streaming service or something, which is now going to happen because I think Shepherd Book,
unfortunately the actor
away,
passed away. Yeah,
so
I think the weight of expectation for another season of Firefly
might kill it. Yeah,
would be so hard to outweigh with the quality that would actually be put on screen.
Correct.
It would have to be. It's the Half-Life 3 of TV.
Yeah.
It's like the weight of expectation would be so heavy that you'd have to be so supremely confident that you had something incredible before committing the resources to it.
Yeah. I do have to ask, as a non Half-Life player, did 3 seriously never get made?
No.
Wow.
No.
What? After the immense popularity of Half-Life and Half-Life 2?
It's not even just that. Talking of cliffhangers, Half-Life 2 had 2 DLC additional games that were a little shorter, but were excellent. And the ending of the second one of them was a massive, massive cliffhanger. Which was such a big cliffhanger that the ending credits was the sound of a character sobbing for most of the credits.
Oh my gosh.
And then they just never made a third game. They just never tied that story. They never tied that story. Now, there's always rumors that it still exists. There's always rumors that it's still going to happen. And Half-Life Alyx, which was a prequel VR game, is absolutely mind-blowing. It's incredible. But yeah, they never did make a sequel to Half-Life 2.
The thing is, someone will
Wow.
eventually make one, even if it's not in production now or even close to being done now. It is such a popular IP that eventually someone will do something with it. Right?
Listen,
Like,
according
it's
to this one
inevitable.
website, I don't even 80.lv or whatever it is, Half-Life 2 is celebrating its 20th anniversary on November 16th. And it looks like Valve is preparing a present for its faithful fans.
I have heard this rumor, and it's one of those rumors where I don't allow myself to get too excited about it, because it's just as easily going to be a T-shirt. This is Valve we're talking about.
Right.
No, it's like every time George R.R. Martin makes an announcement or is doing a big con appearance. And I'm like, maybe...
I was comparing it to Patrick Rothfuss and Doors of Stone from the what's the name of the Wind series, whatever it's called, the King Killer Chronicles, where we've gotten 2 books out of a very definitely third plan. Like, there's still so much that needs to happen in this story, and we have, in 15 years, more than that, we've never gotten the 3rd book, the Doors of Stone book. I am dying on the vine.
So the thing is, I've heard about that series and I've not started reading it because I'm like, I can't do the Game of Thrones again and get invested in a series that has no ending. But does Patrick Rothfuss said that he's working on it? Like,
yes, all the time.
Okay, so he is doing
it drives me
as well. Where
yes,
he's like,
100%. It's exactly
I'm writing, and then when he gives summaries of page numbers or words that he's written, you're like, well, George, you said you'd written this many words this many years ago, which means in the last 4 years you've added maybe 200 words. Like, what is happening? Why are you doing this to us? I'd rather not know. Anything that specific.
Yeah,
it's a bit like that.
I just looked it up again. I was like,
and all these data miners data mining the games and finding stuff that they think is relevant to a third game. I think the problem with Half-Life is that when Half-Life came out, it completely revolutionized video games. It changed video game narrative forever. When Half-Life 2 came out, it revolutionized the video game industry. It changed physics forever and facial animations in games. It changed the game, literally. So Half-Life sort of has a legacy of revolutionizing everything when it lands. So that I don't think they would ever make a third game unless they had a way to completely shake the industry with it.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Which I'm sure they could. It's Valve. They have the money for it.
Well, let's step back out of our video game podcast and back into the D&D one. My question is for you, chaps. That's the end of the news. However,
I have one more thing, actually.
Have you had chance to look at the Dungeon Master's Guide?
I have not. No,
it's
not released yet, is it? It's not released to the 11th.
You can get it.
Oh, the pre-order.
You can get it on D&D Beyond if you're.
Rather annoyingly, my friendly local gaming store received it almost 2 weeks in advance, and the special editions immediately all sold out. I've already bought the special edition of the Player's Handbook, so I'm really and they said they can't even back order it, like they can't even place a new order for it. Wow. So I am now on the hunt for a DMG special edition. In honesty, I'm a little pissed about this because I was traveling expecting the book to hit friendly local gaming stores when they said it would, and to not have that now available because people just realized it was there and grabbed it up early. And now when I got back and I'm like, oh, didn't it just launch a couple of days ago? Actually, we got it in 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks ago, and now it's not here. That kind of is miffing me a little bit and is making me turn to the internet, which I didn't want to have to do, but here we are.
No, I haven't got it on D&D Beyond yet. I do want a physical copy of it, so I'm waiting to go to one of my friendly local game stores.
But Damien, hit us with your take, because this looks. I've heard really good things from reviewers and people who've had their hands on it.
Yeah, I have merely got ankle deep in the waters of it. I've waded through the pool. I have not taken a full dive. However, For everything I've seen of it, matches my thoughts on the player's handbook. It's beautiful. It's really well organized. It definitely seems a lot more usable. It definitely feels like a book that you could return to and get something out of. The way they put the Dungeon Master's toolkit together in Chapter 3 with traps and poisons and features and madness and all those kind of things all conglomerated into one chapter to just sprinkle your games with is a really clever idea. And it's also heavily focused on new folks, welcoming new people into the game. A lot of the the adventure writing advice is fantastic, and you can get some stuff out of it, but it's very much geared towards, hey, new guy who's never GM'd before, here's a load of great advice for you. So it's a great book. It's a great resource. It's much more usable than the previous ones. Very beautiful, very well organized. Very very much like the player's handbook. Yeah, very much so. Bastions, interesting. I know a lot of people are sort of frustrated with how rules light the Bastions are, but my response to that is always, 5e has always been rules light. That's kind of its big selling point. It's the reason it's such a juggernaut, is because it's so accessible, and there's always going to be Dungeon Masters Guild filled with 14 versions of an updated Bastion rule set that you can play with.
I'm actually really
level capping it is an odd choice. Level capping the upgrades to the keep is out of everything, that's the one I sort of go, that's a bit weird that you sort of only get access to things at certain levels.
Right.
But I suppose
if you have a smaller party that would only have access to like a nature sanctuary or a herbalist garden or something like that, but that's not unlockable to level 18, and your campaign isn't going past level 10. I can see why that's frustrating.
Yeah.
What else, in what other sense is it rules light? Because I'm actually, as I think I've mentioned, I'm very invested in the Bastion rules, and I realize there's a whole chapter devoted to it. So I thought it was pretty robust. To hear that it's rules light is like a little.
It's robust in its scope, because there is, I forget the number, but there's something like nearly 30 like different things you can put in your Bastion, and each of them have their own sort of little version of a rule that they give you, a boon or a benefit, either for your keep or for you as a character in your adventuring party.
Right.
So in that sense, there's some nuance to it, because obviously there's quite a lot of scope for making a different keep every time. But much in the same way as sort of a collectible card game works, the base rule is very simple. You get access to things at certain levels. You make this roll as a keep action every so many in-game days, and that's sort of basically the rules. It's just very very simple to use, simple to do, and locked behind sort of level caps so that it's not taking up every session. Whereas the nuance comes from, okay, what am I going to pick? What are we going to have in our keep? Or, what rules do we want to benefit from? And that's where the minutia comes in.
Sure. Makes sense. Interesting. Well, I'm still excited to check it out. How are the new magic items in the book?
I've only seen a small number. There's another very beautiful chapter, lots of artwork. There's some interesting stuff in there. There is a lot of new, including the magic items from the animated show. Are all in there.
Yes.
Okay.
So on that point, so there's a free adventure being put on D&D Beyond Scions of Elemental Evil, which has created pre-gen character sheets for the 1980s cartoon characters. So you've got Bobby, Diana, Eric, Hank, Nico, Presto, and Sheila, all created at level 4, and each one has got one of their magic items included. So Bobby's Great Club, Diana's quarterstaff of the Acrobat, Eric's Shield of the Cavalier, Hank's Energy Bow, Nico's Mace, Presto's Hat of Many Spells, and Sheila's Cloak of Invisibility have all been put in there as well.
Very cool.
Which is a further thing where they are pushing the cartoon characters for some reason.
Yeah.
They're making a comeback.
They're making a comeback. They're putting them out there and getting them in people's minds before they do something with them.
Which would be so weird. Would be so weird, wouldn't it?
It does seem weird to do it. Not. I mean, if they're going to reboot it or do something with it, it would only really make sense to do it as a kids show. I would have thought. At which point, how does advertising and putting the stuff into D&D do a great job of bringing in that particular audience?
I have noticed that the artwork of them in recent publications, like these short adventures they've been releasing featuring them, which this is the second one now, I think.
Yeah.
The second short adventure featuring them. And certainly in the books, they've been aged up a bit and modernized in their sort of design. So perhaps that would be the angle they would take of a new show, would be them a bit older and a bit more seasoned, perhaps a little less childish, and therefore a bit more appealing to a broader audience.
I mean, maybe they go the YA route, do a live action YA series, the 100 or something like that.
Yeah,
with the original D&D cartoon characters aged up a bit.
I could see it being very X-Men.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
I could see it being very, very much like the new X-Men series, in terms of its sort of scope.
Oh,
and theme
I see what you mean. Like X-Men 97.
Yes.
Yeah, which I have really enjoyed. Yeah, I suppose that's a good point.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Cool. I'm now stuck scrolling down the magic items and looking at all. I'm like, this looks so cool. Well, Baba Yaga's dancing broom. We got some new updated artwork for some things, like Black Razor has its old artwork restored in the book. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, nice. I look forward to your chap's full review of the Dungeon Master's Guide. We're only a few days away from general release. I think it's the 11th, right? Is general release?
Yeah.
For the book.
Yeah.
So I will probably not be able to pick it up next week. So it'll probably be like the 18th onwards.
How dare you, James? I know. And you call yourself a DM? Oh.
And I've got a busy time. If I could have picked it up this weekend physically, then I would have done. But that seems to not be a possibility.
I'm hoping my physical copy will be here in a couple of days. I pre-ordered all 3 limited edition cover books.
Nice. Where'd you pre-order from?
All at once from Zatu. Because they were up for a pretty darn good price at the point that I pre-ordered them. So although they made a very interesting decision regarding how they distributed the books, and therefore I've had to pay more money to get them.
Yes, you said, yeah.
But yeah, other than that, very excited to pick up my copy very soon.
Guys, wait, they changed the deck of many things. What? They added a card in here. Puzzle.
Did they?
Yes. Permanently reduce your intelligence or wisdom by 1d4 plus 1. You draw 1 additional card beyond your declared draws. What?
That's a frustrating thing to do right after releasing a big sort of all singing, all dancing deck of many things book. And
was this a previous card? No, right? I'm not crazy. They didn't just take a card and rename it, right? What? I'm surprised they did that. That's a bold choice.
That is. Wow. Yeah, especially after the release of their big
all that tie-in material. Yeah.
Very
strange.
Oh well, okay. They'll just have to make more.
Oh no, more money for us.
Cool.
They were devastated, I'm sure.
So that's news concluded then, I guess.
Wow. There you go. Oh, I'm sorry. They've changed a lot of things. Comment. Here's something new for the comment card. The next time you enter combat against one or more hostile creatures, you can select one of them as your foe when you roll initiative. If you reduce your foe to 0 hit points during that combat, you have advantage on death saving throws for 1 year. If someone else reduces your chosen foe to 0 hit points, or you don't choose a foe, this card has no effect. That's not how the comment card worked. Comment was you gain enough experience to you gain a level if you defeat the next monster or monsters you encounter, I think, was the old rule for that. Weird.
That's crazy.
Oh, I don't know that I like it.
Uh-oh.
Interesting. Uh-oh. Anywho, that'll be the news. We'll have more of our hot takes on the DMG hopefully in the coming weeks. But what about our Tales from the Tables? Who's got one?
Yes,
I have some in a
do have one. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you go, James.
We in the Rolldark Marches have had our very first character death last week.
Whom does the bell toll for?
Our beloved Rattleborough Rat, a rogue who was beloved by all, went down fighting a hag empowered Bodak in a swamp. We had Granny Irene, one of the recurring villains of the Rolldark Marches, was attempting to retrieve some magical emeralds from the figurehead of a ship that the players were aware of and had washed up a few hundred years ago in the swamp. Encountered on a previous adventure, they got word that the hag was trying to take these magical items that they had previously left alone, figuring that they were probably cursed. Correctly so. So as they rushed to get there, they were ambushed by a Bodak, and I think there were 2 or 3 players down at one point, but unfortunately, with the Bodak's aura and a natural 1 rolled on a death saving throw, it meant that the rat sadly did not survive.
No.
That's how I lost my last player character in Rolldark, was a nat 1 on a death save.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah.
It was a really cool, like, emotional moment, and the player who plays Rat, I'm not sure if they'd be comfortable saying their name, so I will not do that. But you know who you are, and I know that you listen. But yes, they were on board with the character being the first casualty of the Rolldark Marches, and adding a little bit of stakes to the world.
Are there what happens from here? Are they rolling a new character? Are they attempting to bargain for their life? Is someone looking for a raise dead spell scroll? What's the plan here?
They have rolled a new character.
There we
ready
go.
to go.
Okay.
And they have reduced in level, and they're starting again.
Wow. Intense.
Cool.
But that is what great stories are made of.
But yes, it's very cool, and it has affected some of the other players who are close to Rap, so their characters get to go through that. So it's really cool.
Nice.
Cool. Very, very cool. How about you, Damien?
Really interesting for me. This time of year, I sort of somewhat self-servingly try and make sure that I get to play all these systems that I never get to play otherwise by reaching out to my extended friend group and telling them I'm running usually 4 or 5 one-shots of systems. And around this time of year, it's usually horror or horror adjacent, whether it's sort of more whimsical or actually horror. And we try and get everybody together over the weeks and play these one-shots. And just recently I got a chance to play a game that was sort of a bucket list game for me, a game I've desperately wanted to try and run at some point, and will probably at least attempt to bring it to Rolldark for a one or more shot in the near future, because it was a great success, was Geist, the Sin Eaters, which for you World of Darkness heads is from World of Darkness. And it is a game about people who have died, made a deal with a creature called a Geist, which is kind of a ghost, but a more sort of a ghost that's more of a ghost of an idea or an emotion or a feeling rather than of an individual, who tells you that they will bring you back to the world of the living, but you must take me with you. And then when you come out the other side, you are back to life again. You have a Geist that follows you around and has its own plans and things it wants to achieve. And from that point on, you can see dead people. So you can see other ghosts, and people who have this occur to them often become Sin Eaters, who try and help other ghosts move on to a better place and fight the injustice of the underworld. So yeah, really, really thematic, really cool setting, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, heads up, if anyone is interested in Geist, I might try and bring that as a one-shot to Rolldark at some point soon.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention it happened just last night for Fallout. The shenanigans continue.
Yeah.
The group were faced with a problem, a horde of frozen ghouls.
Okay.
Feral ghouls, of course, frozen feral ghouls, which were descending on civilization to try and reach areas of warmth, and very, very dangerous in great numbers, bringing down defenses, killing people, wearing down resources. So they were tasked with trying to get rid of that horde in some fashion. And they discovered a sort of submerged train line, a sort of train line that cuts through a deep groove in the landscape, a valley, that they decided if they could try and draw them to that location, they would fall into that train groove and be forced to follow the train line somewhere else and just not be a problem anymore.
Right.
So on the way back from scouting that location, they were set upon by an opportunistic bunch of raiders who tried to dupe them into thinking they were friendly and then ambushed them. It did not work out well for them. The group handily dispatched them and kept one of them alive and said, "You have a new opportunity to earn your life and freedom. Your new name is Bait." And
oh wow!
took this sorry excuse for a raider back to the township and basically tasked them with making a lot of noise and running very quickly to try and maintain a Walking Dead-esque horde of frozen ghouls for a long period of time, a mile or two out of the township and into this pit, this train line. And it was a series of rolls, group checks, that needed to be succeeded. And boy, did they their rolls were incredible, the equivalent of crits constantly.
Wow.
And it was this awesome sequence of this poor guy getting the starting gun and having to run for his life, while one of the ghoul players, the sentient ghoul players, who would not be attacked by feral ghouls unless they attacked first, had the chance to shine here and began to sing and dance their way through the streets, collecting ghouls up into a great big horde, while the other characters pressed a little further forward, making noise, banging on cars and windows and shouting. The nurse handy robot was firing flames into the air to try and bring their attention to the heat. They ended up having to fight a small pocket of them that broke away from the group and deal with them before the horde could catch up to them. So they were on a ticking clock. And all of this was played, of course, to the wonderful classic tunes of the Fallout era. Playing over this described it very much as this slow motion sequence of the sentient ghoul character like dancing through the streets a la Joker, while ghouls were sort of rushing past her and bumping into her and trying to chase down the other characters. This poor soul running at full pelt, trying to earn his freedom. And basically what they'd done is they'd set up on the other side of the train track, on the upward slope, they'd set up a rope on some trees to basically pull themselves up out of the pit once the ghouls were in the other side. And what they'd done, I'd set it at a high difficulty, and then they made some survival rolls to reduce the difficulty that it would take once they got there. So it's going to be difficulty 4 base. Your roll will determine how difficult it actually is when you get there. And they reduced it down to 2 without going into the rules. The horde followed them. There was only that one pocket that broke free, and they managed to beat them before getting enveloped. And then they managed to bring the horde to the train line, dove into the train track, got out the other side with some successful rolling, and the last person in the line was Bait, who'd sort of been overtaken. He fell into the pit, was running to the edge, and looking up at them, very much expecting them to leave him behind. They extended a hand out and pulled Bait out of the pit as the ghouls were grabbing hold of his clothing and trying to envelop him.
Pull him down, right?
Yeah, and dragged him out of the pit, took him back to civilization and said, right, you've earned your keep. And the nurse handy had a beautiful moment where they'd of course told him this was his new name and this was his mission, was to corral a horde of ghouls, which he was horrified by. And the Mr. Handy at the top of the pit, once they pulled him out and he was catching his breath and realizing he was alive, said, "Excellent work, sir. Tomorrow, your task is to kick a super mutant in the nuts." And his soul left his body as he calculated all the things they were going to do to him over the subsequent days to test his allegiance. They didn't do that. They did take him to civilization and
right.
Still give him the chance
to
earn new freedom. But it was a wonderful moment of him just turning pale and wanting to vomit because he thought that every day he was going to be tasked with some brutal task like mucking out a Deathclaw nest or kicking a super mutant in the nuts.
Right. Brilliant. Very, very Herculean labors.
Yeah. So again,
cool.
Absolute madness, music, violence, chaos, shenanigans in Fallout. It continues to be a really fun time.
Sounds like a good time. Yeah,
it is a lot of fun. So thank you, folks. You know who you are.
Yeah, I do have a story to share. Maybe not as hilarious and as ridiculous as that. But this is honestly a shout out I've wanted to give for a while to my Wayfinders, a couple in particular, but you'll know who you are. So they have been in the domains of dread. This is my Saturday teen game for those of you who have not heard me talk about this before. And they have been in the domains of dread for quite some time. They're actually very high level. They're level 19. This Wayfinders campaign has been going on for years. And they're effectively going on like a little bit of a grand tour of the domains of dread. Currently, they find themselves in the realm of Demantlu, which is a horrible butcherization of how it probably should be pronounced, which is like Demantlu or something like that. But it's a very decadent French villa / sort of the King Louis era of France inspired sort of feel, but where nothing is as it seems. Everyone is far more, it's like trying to live and appear above their station. Everything is kind of an illusion, not magically so, just sort of mundanely so. But they've been studying a series of murders, and what they've really done that impressed me was they put together a separate, out of game, out of character evidence sheet that was basically them building up a profile on the killer. And they've been adding to it and modifying it based on all the new evidence that they gather, the new NPCs they talk to, the new clues they discover. And they've done so many good things with this. So I wish I could visually show you what it looks like. I can for Damien and James, of course. But for instance, there are different boxes on what is effectively like a killer character sheet, where bodily traits has the note left-handed. Then body next to it, breath smell masked by a masking scent, like a mint. Personality is a separate box that says aloof and a native to Demantlu. Clothing has bullets such as wearing gloves, feminine clothing, little to no discrepancies, short or short-ish nails. They have a whole list of the current evidence. They have predictions and a box for leads. There's so much going into this, and honestly, it has led to some really interesting stuff where I've had to do a lot of outside research because people are asking like, okay, so we found a handkerchief with a lipstick stain on it, but do you know that certain components of lipstick are made in certain environments? So we need to track down the factory that has this particular kind of lipstick, ingredient and ask them if they know what this has been used for and who it's been sold to. And they've been going through this motion, making it far larger than I had originally planned for. So this, honestly, it's some really cool detective work, and it's great to see it. It's that sort of thing.
That's very, very cool. You'll know well, JC, that there is a killer at the very beginning, very beginning. So it's hardly a spoiler at all, of Icewind Dale.
My buddy, yes, I love that guy.
that in the way it's written in the book is very much you get told immediately who they are, and you just have to go and deal with them.
Right.
And I've seen online many people suggesting it, and I'm sort of passing out my own way of doing it. Is turning that into more of a murder mystery.
Yeah, making a murder mystery for sure.
Making it more longer lasting and trying to work out who the killer is. And that just brought that to mind. That's such such a cool idea of having like an Alan Wake-esque profile sheet and
Mm-hmm.
picking up all the clues and slowly working their way up to trying to pin somebody down as a potential suspect. That's really cool.
Yeah, and it has really worked in their favor, up to the point where they're using this as a reference for it's minor spoilers, but it doesn't really matter because it's my own invention. But basically, they had a lot of leads pointing them to a cabaret or a burlesque house, and when they got there, they did a couple of interviews there. They watched a few performances. They ended up talking to a few people, and looking at their evidence sheet, realized that their stories corroborated. So they were like, okay, that's fine. You're clearly not the killers, but someone is either trying to frame you or there's something else going on here. And when they walked out, the person, effectively the aristocrat who had assigned them to this murder mission, immediately showed signs of bias. And he's like, yes, a house of iniquity and sin. This clearly must be what happened. And you've told me that they had that this murder victim had a previous encounter with one of these courtesans from the burlesque house, etc. Right? And so they literally produced the evidence sheet. And we're like, actually, no. Here is the if and when and how. And I was like, oh shoot! But this character is like rooted in his biases. How is he going to react to the physical evidence brought up? And then I thought of my country, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, fair enough. That's easily done. People do that all the time. But not to make this political. It was just a great evidence usage, and honestly just so fun that they've started this. Not all of the Wayfinders are writing in it. Two of them are kind of taking the lead on it, but obviously all of the players are contributing to the information that goes into it. So well done, all of you. Good stuff. There is one other very quick tale from the table that I wanted to share. And this is actually a home game that I'm running. Go figure, it's Curse Strahd, because there's always Strahd in my life. But we had a very fun, very rare in-person session. Someone offered graciously to host. And I have to be honest with you folks, I had an idea of what I wanted the session to be until I walked into this to our friend's house. And I saw that on their beautiful dining room table, they had this very large, decorative copper wire tree. It was the model of a tree made entirely from copper wire. And when I looked at it, it looked like a dead stretch of a tree. There were no leaves, nothing, right? It was just a dead tree. And I was like, this is a perfect size for a Gulthias tree in Yester Hill. So minor spoilers for Curse of Strahd, but I completely changed. It kind of actually worked in with what they had to do eventually. I just kind of moved the schedule around a little bit. And we had a player death as well in that case. It was also against a hag. And
Rob screaming from wherever he is. No,
it literally is like, stop it with the hags. The way it basically went down was the party had skipped the encounter at Old Bone Grinder a long time prior. They had a guy effectively negotiate with the hags. So the hags had been reassigned to guard the Gulthias tree at the top of Yester Hill. And it finally led to a battle. So much so where one of the characters who's playing a recently turned into a sort of savage barbarian who has ties to Yanagu, and there's a sort of barbaric spirit from Old Barovia that's inhabiting the spear that he's using. If you know more about Curse of Strahd, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But he ran past a hag, provoking an attack of opportunity. She got a crit, and as a result, because I use a homebrew table of critical hit results, she got the best version of the result, which was she can immediately take one action of her choice. And she decided to cast a spell, and she cast Disintegrate on him. And he had like 5 hit points left. It was a bold choice for sure. But he had been harassing the hags, and he needed to be removed from the picture. So as the ashes, I said, what's your final move? What's the last thing that you would do prior seeing this hag starting to spin up a green beam that is bound to hit you in the chest? And he, out of nowhere, said, I throw myself on my spear. I'll deny her the true pleasure of getting the killing blow. She can disintegrate me, but I'll throw myself on my spear first, and like a final sacrifice to the spirit, the evil spirit that's inhabiting it. And I looked up from my notes, just arching my eyebrow, and I said, "You throw yourself onto your spear." Good, because that activates the third phase of the evolution of this magic weapon that you have, which is you have to sacrifice yourself to it. He didn't know this. And what happened was he came back. His spirit was trapped in the spear instead of going on or being trapped in the mists. And as a result, he came back to repossess the corpse, the body of the evil spirit that lived inside the spear, and rejoined the party as this in his like ultimate form, with the ultimate form of a now +3 weapon that he's wielding that has all these ridiculous magic properties that I've given it, which I'm going to immediately regret. So yeah, fun times. But it was really cool. It was a very cool moment for an in-person, for a rare in-person game, since we mostly play online.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
high stakes for an in-person game. It's great when that works out that way, because that's what you want when you're all together, is that really sort of, whether it's high stakes, in a sort of more agonizing way like that with a character death, or whether it's just high stakes in terms of high fun and high joviality and great NPCs and great interaction and stuff like that.
Right.
So
very cool.
Fun.
I think we may have lost a little bit of connection from James, which is why he hasn't chimed in a minute. But I think probably a good place to call it right here.
I think so. I think that's cool. That's us for today. Some news, some video game talk as per, and a couple of great tales from the tables.
Indeed.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll hope to see you next time, or you'll hear us next time. And thanks for your patience with our hiatus. Hopefully we are back in action now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good to be back.
All right. Let's call it there. See you next time.
See you again. Bye.
Bye-bye.